today's conversation is going to explore 4 themes. We're going to spend about 10 minutes or so, perhaps a little bit less on each one of them. If I get over time, give me a shout. Some of them are very obvious. The 4 themes are, feedback's okay. The 4 themes are furniture versus architecture. The second theme is where do ideas come from? I'm sure many of you will be interested in that. Me too. Then we're going to look at the nuances of collaboration, of working together with other people. And last but not least, to have a little bit of fun and polemics, we're going to watch the mighty battle between minimalism and the arts and crafts. Well, maybe there isn't a battle, but maybe they can be friends after all. So I'm going to start with the first theme, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a free-for-all, so everybody joins, right? The first theme is it's Manuel's fault. He arrived in the last minute, so we managed to talk about this. But we're going to make it work. First theme has got to do with how architecture and furniture design intersect. It's very obvious in many cases. Many architects have designed furniture. But I have to say, I'm surprised when I get visitors to the workshop that the ones that enjoy the visits the most seem to be architects. And that's because they don't really need to see anything finished. They're just happy to see the process. They're just happy to see how we made those things and the attention that we put into it. So I want to have a little bit of fun. Please, maybe Lyndon, you want to go first. When you work on architecture, are you having more fun than when you design furniture? Or is it completely different and therefore not comparable?
I think in many ways it's the same. For me at least. We are an interdisciplinary practice, and I think the modern movement, if you look at Le Corbusier and Charlotte Perriand, if you look at Eileen Gray, House 1027, even Alvar Aalto, the ethos behind those work, Walter Gropius, Bauhaus, right? Those ethos came from the idea that furniture, art, and architecture are all of one of the same thing.
But the scale is so different.
It is. But I think if you look at, I was just in La Tourette with my Princeton student, and I saw this beautiful piece that I never understood by Charlotte Perriand. But in that chapel, where it's made out of concrete instead of wood, all of a sudden it made sense to me, right? And so it's not that we are against furniture as a spectacle, because there's a lot of them out there that just screams loudly. I think that's not how we practice. It's very much, the pieces are very much subservient to a spatial construct for us. The furniture was never conceived as something purely by itself and for itself. I think it's constantly part of a spatial human context that we work within that space.
The logical conclusion of that is that then every house or every building needs its own furniture. And that really raises a big problem, right? Because we would have to make individual pieces of furniture for every home, and that's not the way the world works. So how do you deal with that?
I'm going to let them answer the hard question.
I don't feel it is, but let's say, even if I agree with all that you said, I think there are a big difference, because in architecture we are working in something that is unique. So it's only a specific problem that's not going to be repeated. And when we repeat an answer in architecture, it's always a bad answer. And it's this condition of being unique, that's the only client, the only position, the only problem, the only budget, that makes the project of architecture being interesting. And in a way, when we are working in furniture, I don't say that it's the opposite, but we see it in another way. We have to design things that are going to be used by people that you never talk with. So I never talk with this gentleman, he's sitting in a chair that I designed, and we never talk. He never told me that he wants a chair like that. No, I just designed a chair that he's using. And this makes a huge difference. Because we need to have a kind of a sense of a common ground to design this. That is absolutely the opposite of when we design in architecture. In the architecture, we have to look for what are the specific conditions, looking for the difference on the problem. Here, we look for the common ground. I'm not a designer, so I can say whatever I want. So I'm an architect. You see this chair one, it's not because it's the first, because it's the unique chair. So it's like, so I can say whatever comes to my mind. But for me, it's this idea of common ground that I'm interested when I'm working on this condition. And then I think there one aspect that makes me think a lot in terms of the world is changing, and we have to do and to be focused in furniture in a new way. I remember we had a very interesting conversation a couple of years ago when we were saying that now we have to do less and we have to produce more things that we can move from one side to the other, that you can have to have, an armoire that you can move with us, moving from one house to another. Not only because people are moving more, but because also becomes incredibly expensive to do it on site. So this idea of prefab, when you think about furniture, it's very interesting and it's very powerful. And but also because we have to design more and think more about architecture, about things that are fixed and they are not going to change so much. So the idea is what is architecture? It's what is permanent, and we design furniture to change the ambience and to change the function of a place or to change whatever. And I think that is also a necessity that we have on the world, is making a focus in design.
It sounds to me, Manuel, you've just discovered furniture. That you've spent all these years looking at
no, it's Maria that it's somewhere that make me discover
this exciting thing called furniture. But I think I understand what you're saying. Rossana, were you going to add something to this conversation?
I was going to say that within that question, there are different ways of answering it, and they've each selected one angle to answer, and I would have to say I probably agree with both. And one useful reference to look at is the Bauhaus, and also the notion of total design. Total design, I guess, originated from opera, if you will.
Richard Wagner.
From Wagner. Mm-hmm. And it's about the design of operatic, theater, setting, costume, to the music and the lyrics and the
themes explored
and the story.
Yes.
And then I think that bled into Bauhaus, the way they were educating designers who are working with craft and concept and ideas and material. You have the Albers, you have Mahali Nagi, like that whole entire group of, many of them are architects, right? But they were teaching all sorts of different arts. And I would say, while I do agree that you are looking at a contrast between specificity and kind of site in situ considerations within architectural realm, and I think in furniture it's more about the industrialized mass production, but I think that might also be changing.
Yeah.
So architecture might be moving towards repeated mass production, right? And then furniture, I think with AI is probably going to move towards, if we're smart enough, could be moving more and more towards
individual solutions.
Exactly. So you can probably input your specific details and dimensions and materials and connections and send them to De La Spada for order, and it'll arrive in your living room.
That almost sounds like 3D printing. It's kind of scary.
But there is a lot of
that kind of production.
Of that kind of advanced technology that is happening, and I think it's going to happen much faster than we think.
You made clear that there are these two differences in terms of particularly who you're addressing and how you're addressing the problem. But it sounds to me as well that you're going to strike fear into all the world of industrial designers who worship the object, right, the functional object. They don't have these concerns with location.
I'm not so sure. I think there's a group of people like Jasper Morrison, Ronan Borilik, Konstantin Gricic that aspire to a project of humility, right? It's all about the common, the normal, what did Jasper Morrison and Nauto, supernormal, right?
Yes.
That show was really powerful.
They're not there.
And I actually, Aires Mateus was talking about the specificity, but the thing is, your project has such humility that actually I was showing one of the mood board to my client in Japan, and they're like, wow, that house could actually be in Kyoto, one of your projects, right? So you are very specific that it could be in Portugal, but to a lot of people, there's a sense of humility that it's not a spectacle. I'm not going to name names because there's a lot of architects out there that are in a different camp that are very specific, and their furniture is the same. It's all about being very loud, and it's not about, so you might think it's specific, but because of the sense of humility that you do and how you do your project, it actually comes, like this is probably one of the set of furniture that Rossana and I, we're very picky with our own furniture. This is one in which we considered seriously for our New York apartment, right? That is this particular table. And our kids even ask us this question: why are you not using your own table? Why use Uncle Manuel's? We're like, yeah, because we're trying to convince him to come and lecture at UPenn. So, but
I'll let you do that after.
yes.
I'm going to move on because our time is up for this. I think we have explored differences here. I have my opinions. We'll talk about it later. Let's go to where ideas come from. Once you've said that the problem is different, the solution therefore is different, but in the end, we all have to go find an idea that resolves the problem, whether in architecture or in furniture design. And I have to say, I'm very fond of research personally. I think, and I'm also fond of what people call ideas exercises, where they think about words and ideas, and then they move from that towards a physical object. But I wonder how you work, how you would like to describe how you work. I mean, Lyndon and Rossana, you've been designing furniture for a long time. Manuel has shown interest more recently, although I think he's always sketched furniture. Where do the ideas come from? Please give us the secret sauce.
I want to know.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
Oh, nobody.
Well, I was going to say that the earlier question and the earlier answers from the two gentlemen might seem contrasting, but I would say if we look at the abstraction of design ideas, they probably do, when I say they, I mean architecture versus furniture design or product design, they probably come from the same place. So whether we look at different periods of design or if we look at within a period specific genres of design, very seldom do you see designers or architects cross one to the other. So meaning, a Neri&Hu will maybe continue to be Neri&Hu, whether we're designing a garden or a light, and probably Manuel Aires as well. So in that sense, I think the creative inspiration comes from the same source. And whether that same source has different
starting points.
Yeah, origins is hard to say. And I remember taking a course when I was at Berkeley undergraduate. I took a course on design theory. I thought it's really about theory and philosophy, but it actually was more a science of theory. And I remember in the course, they listed out different sources of creativity, and one of them was like kiss of an angel, meaning it's just magical. You have no idea where it comes from. And I actually think that's really the one for us, because very seldom do we really know where it comes from.
Well, I'll circle back, but I'll let Manuel spill the beans.
No, but let me just say one thing that I think that it's very in line with what you said, because when I visited your work in Shanghai, I was very, very impressed. I was very impressed with the details, the quality, and then there I understood better what you design in furniture. There, because this combination, it's true that it's not a difference, and sometimes when I say that this kind of approaches, and I want to be polemic, but it's true that there's a continuity in what you do, and of course, everything comes from the same place, knowing that we don't know where they come from, and they come from life. They come from, sometimes it's a detail, a comment, a subject, a small word that we heard. I mean, we never know. But the only thing that it's interesting, and it's what I feel that is more fantastic about the possibility of designing objects, is that you start paying attention to objects. So, like now, I'm interested in I go into a restaurant and I start seeing everything. And this is for me something that makes me feel more alive and makes me new possibilities, and it's richer. My common day becomes more interesting because I see watches and say, it's a watch. I never pay attention. It's new for me, and so now I'm starting fashion. I hope. I'm kidding, but I hope to start fashion.
That's too far.
we noticed.
I want to just explore references briefly before moving on, because I find references to be a really important source of my own creative life. My wife loves art, and so new things changes. In fact, I think the Espada has changed a lot over the years. New things changes. And you kind of imply that in the end you're always going to be true to yourselves, that there's a certain purity that comes from yourselves, right, from your observation. So are you not open to influences or references? Don't you see things and then they're reflected in what you design?
I think absolutely. Mm-hmm. We are what we see, what we remember, what we know, what we love, what we hate. But I was going to say that one of the difference between architecture and furniture design is that, architecture is very heavy as a discipline, as a subject, as an endeavor.
You mean the clients drive you nuts? Is it that kind
No. Frankly, it's less about the clients. It's more about the discipline, because there's that weight of architecture as a discipline on all of our shoulders. Maybe it's from our student years, I don't know, but that academia is really, really heavy on your shoulders. And it's great that we didn't study product design. So for us, coming to product design is really light and it's really fun. So we see product design as a hobby.
A way to relax.
A way to relax, as opposed to, when we're working on architecture, it's serious business.
I'm not so sure about that. Maybe it's relaxed for you, but I'm completely stressed with all the furniture.
The disagreement between the couple.
But I do think, Heidegger talked about the idea that we are placed, meaning we become who we are based on the context that we are in, the family we grew up in, the schools that we went to. But for a long time, for a long period of time, a group of people that do believe in this philosophy became so trapped with this whole ideology until Kierkegaard says there is an epiphany where you can break away from, maybe the furniture is not so much relaxed, but maybe the furniture allow us to kind of, like Kierkegaard says, break away from the heaviness of architecture. But I'm not so sure if we're so free.
No, but let's say, but even in saying about influences, there are also things that are in architecture, in furniture, that are that you can mention the influences very clearly. So when the design of this chair, it's influenced by Jasper Morrison. You look at this, and I even called Jasper Morrison saying, "Do you allow me to do this chair? Because it's so close to his chair."
This is a true story. I told him I wasn't going to do this if Jasper didn't like it.
Yes, if you did allow me to produce the story, because it's a chair that I used many years ago. When I say many years ago, in a renovation of a palace for a large room in one of our main palaces in Lisbon, and the chair just fits incredibly there. And then I start buying to my house. So I start buying. They were very expensive, so I bought one by one. So, but I bought a lot.
You didn't get a discount from Luis?
No, the ritmo was not very heavy enough.
Jasper Morrison's chair was made by Vitra.
Yes,
It was
by
developed
Vitra.
in the early
Yes,
90s.
yes. It's not in production anymore.
not in production.
But and then when we start imagining this chair, and I wanted to have the chair in solid wood, we made like this. This combination of the possibility of the chair of Jasper Morrison with a possibility of having a new design that was mathematically more efficient. And this idea, it's very interesting when you have something that you can have a references, a clear references. And I have some projects I can, also in architecture, that I can say clearly where they come from. In others, we don't know. And it's also something that is very important. I mean, at least for myself, is that there are ideas that are in the air. So sometimes things that we design.
You're saying
that,
they're universal.
Yes, that we are just put it on paper what it's in the air. It's not that we are inventing anything, we are just, putting, and I think that sometimes this is interesting. Others, I think that we cannot describe so clearly where they come from, and they have a process that it's different. But I think that we cannot say that they are a way. It's like in life they are not a way. There's never clear sequences. But I think that it's we were proud, for instance, to design this chair and say, okay, this is Jasper Morrison meeting Jean Prouvé, and that's all. And we are not
Directly involved. They were the ones.
Yeah,
they were
no.
parents.
But Luis, I think in terms of the secret sauce, for us it's easier because we have a wealth of old Chinese typology, furniture
We have old
typology
furniture in Portugal.
that we
It's not
we use, right? So to say, and this is one. I mean,
Culture has a wealth.
no, but this is. I'm saying Chinese is a super rich in terms of.
So you can be local. You can be local and say, I'm global because I'm local.
No. I'm saying this because
something to look at.
in many ways,
Well,
it is also not inventive on our part,
Yeah.
right? We're the same. It might not be Jasper Morrison, but the stool you see in all the lane houses in China, right? The stool, the long bench, and the stool, even all of these are very much referential.
Two Chinese typologies.
And maybe Asian and Chinese more specifically, but there's a
You're
wealth.
right. It
So
looks like she's objecting.
yeah, she was.
I was going to say, it's interesting you're saying that. I was going to say everything is referential. Nothing
Yes.
is neutral.
Yes, of course,
Yes.
And
of
so,
course.
and your
No, I'm-
story, but even then, I think modernity also has referential pieces to itself.
Well, I'm relieved because I thought for a second you were the golden warriors of architecture, and I was down here trying to kind of see if I could reach your fort.
Just
I'm
by
going
would say it's
to
joke
bring
on
you
him.
down. I'm going to bring you down to work though with collaboration. It seems to me that in architecture you have to collaborate with many different trades and areas of knowledge. Building today is the result of enormous teamwork, right? I don't know if you want to disagree with me, but you don't. So I'll proceed. And I would say that collaboration seems to be something deeply rooted in the practice of industrial design, or design students are taught to work in an interdisciplinary ways, to work with other people, with craftspeople, with other designers. And so I want you to kind of go through the challenges of collaboration. I want you to tell me if you think whether ideas should evolve during a process, and when you say no, the evolution has to stop. So should they evolve? That's my first kind of challenge to you. Must you surrender those fine ideas and see them change because of the collaborative process with a maker, with a craftsperson, or is there a point where you don't want anything to change?
I think that all the collaborative processes are.
The same.
No, they make the process become richer when you have more people collaborating. And I think that it's when we talk about architecture and you say it's your project, sometimes could be mine, but could be from someone in the office that came out with a super idea that we then developed. I don't know. It's this idea that we are
But you implied that there was a purity of idea when I asked you for the source, that we've always us.
Yes, but
right?
that's on the choice, on saying, an idea is something that have an evolution, that if it's sometimes it becomes even independent from us. And our job is to take care of the idea. If it's not ours or not, it's not so important. And the process, it's what it's interesting. You know, this idea that you bring everyone to develop one idea. And the process of collaboration, it's fundamental. It's fundamental in architecture because you have a lot of people. And then even when you having more experience, let's say, in architecture, you understand that because architecture is precision, that precision, it's not about a mathematics thing, but it's about to coordinate people that's going to work in a process. And this is what it's interesting. Coordinating people from the engineers, from our teams, from the people that are going to be on the site, their knowledge, and it's our work has become more and more coordinate people and putting the value of everyone together.
Working together.
Yeah, and this is what it's interesting.
So you seem comfortable with changes. If I was the structural engineer and I said to you, this cannot work, you're comfortable with that reality?
No, we'll never say that because this is the things that we cannot say. You say, this will work better this way. Let's try to do this in another way. And this is the process, because the process is not about saying no. It's about starting from something. It's how can it work on the idea of evolution. And everybody works on this idea of evolution. And I think that it's very interesting. And even, you know, when you think about whatever, this, we know that we had a process of evolution. We know that it's you that knows about this and not us. And we need this collaboration
I need you to talk to them. Because right now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a table that was engineered at 7 centimeters thickness. And then they reduced it to 5. And of course, it's not working. So now we have the challenge of making
the challenge is to how to.
Yeah, but they're not throwing ideas. So when do the ideas bend to gravity? Sorry, but I didn't
No, I
hear
said
that.
invest in metal in there.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's a hybrid. Well, okay, we'll talk about that again later. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to move on to my last thought. I know that many of you are standing. You can sit on the floor if you want. The lady over here has done a sensible thing. I'm going to have we wanted polemics, right? Lyndon, you mentioned the word polemics. Oh, no, it was you. It was you. You were the troublemaker. So I wrote I'm both fond of John Paulson when I was young. I'm really sorry, guys. I didn't know you were around. It took a few more years until I discovered you. And I'm also a great fan of the Victorian designer William Morris. You know that. You've heard me say this. And I get into trouble for saying this sometimes. There is a kind of movement to reduce things to their essence. We could call it minimalism. It feels like a simplification, right? A reduction. You almost mentioned things that become invisible or not there or humble, right? Lyndon, those are the words that you used. But we also look at the tradition of arts and crafts, which are more decorative. Arts and crafts became Art Nouveau. I'm sure you like Art Nouveau. Not sure. All right, so the battle commences. Why? I mean, I guess it's the old ornament is a crime argument. Why do you see, when you see the more elaborate things in life, why does that trouble you in any way? Isn't decoration beautiful sometimes?
I think it's a reflection of the time we live in. So that could change later.
Context.
Its context is the progression of civilization and human kind of aesthetics. Aesthetics is part of your culture. So, and I really think with AI, so many things will change.
We will head towards the age of incredible, silly amounts of decoration with that, won't we?
Absolutely. There's a new movement of, digital Baroque coming out. I mean, it's just because it's now as easy as pushing a button to create articulated surfaces, right?
I would argue that it goes against the spirit of Morris, right, who valued the handiwork of the craftsperson, reflected in the decorative detail.
Who's to say the hand has to be a human hand? Maybe it's a robot hand.
It's complicated. I'll grant you that. But that means
Especially
that
in the Spada form.
So you don't reject the minimalism as a permanent state. You said that there's a pendulum then that swings from one end to the other, depending on the society around us?
I have a problem with the word minimalism anyways,
I
because,
told you I thought it wasn't a great
because
word.
minimalism
You
to
tell me
begin
what
with
it
is just a style in itself, right?
Yes.
I mean, you look at magazine like Kinfolk, I know it's very much a Danish thing. It's a beautiful magazine, it's beautiful to look at. It's the same as looking at a very beautiful Gaudi piece. And so we have to be careful between substance and style, right? To understand the essence of what we're trying to do as opposed to a stylistic endeavor. Minimalism, by just purely, minimalism can also be a decorative phenomenon.
But Gaudi,
It can be.
Can be, no.
You just do a veneer, for instance. Every apartment that's in sort of Northern Europe they can call it the Northern European look. Without truly having a Fritz Hansen chair. It could be a fake Fritz Hansen chair, and people could call it very minimal feeling, but nothing about it is.
So the word offensive, but you did mention
essential.
humility and simplicity, right? And somehow your wife implied that might not be the thing of the future. Humility and simplicity.
No, I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying we can't assume that it's not. It could not. Who knows? But it's definitely not to say that minimalism is that we're moving towards more and more minimal aesthetic.
So Luis, you have to also understand where we came from. When we started our practice close to 20 years ago in Shanghai, we're in a city, the growth was unprecedented, and people were into things that were not just ornamental, everything that was complicated, complex, were considered expensive.
So you reacted against
And so to a certain extent, we reacted to that. We also made sure that we had a store, right? Design Republic, you're familiar with.
Yes.
And it became the platform to showcase, in many ways, modern design.
a different point of view.
Right, a different point of view. And I think for the first year, no one bought the furniture. Everyone loved the pieces. I think there's a lot of people here from Design Republic in this crowd working in different parts of Europe now. So we're very proud. There are, in many ways, our kids in design. So we're extremely proud. It's not just the architects that come out of our office, not just the product designers, but the people that came out of our store that now carry this mantra. I don't know where Victoria is, but she now represents strings in China, right? So it's a proud moment for us to be able to actually have a different voice. And so in many ways, it's about trying to understand the essence and to try to push this pedagogy that we believe in.
But you mentioned the reaction means that if we were in very minimalistic times, a young architect starting out or a young designer might react against that and want to see more ornate form and shape, right, as they turn against this sort of reduction to nothing or to simplicity.
I think whether there's ornament or not is a reflection of the society and the values of the culture. And so it really depends where we're moving towards. I mean, the world is so chaotic right now. I really have no idea. There's no way of predicting where we're moving towards, right? But there's a reason why Le Corbusier started modernism, and then Lowe's, and thereafter we know the whole kind of design history. And there's a reason why then the postmodernists, and we worked for one. We worked for Michael Graves for many years. Reacted against modernism, because Michael would always say in his critique, because I went to school when he was a teacher at Princeton, he would always ask the question, where's the front door? He wanted an architecture to show you from the form where the front door is.
The sense of entry. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, without any signage. So, and that was the reaction against modernism. And then, of course, there's this back and forth.
And their products reflected that. Aldo Rossi, Sozzas,
they were
right?
Hateful,
yeah.
They were poetic.
Memphis came out of that.
So let's get to minimal. I didn't. Maybe you don't care about the fight between the simplicity and complexity.
Because I think that looking into a place like we are in here now in north of Europe or in Europe. there's one thing that is quality that's guarantees certain continuity. And this is for me what is more important. I don't care if it's minimalist or Baroque or whatever. I mean, we can live with this all together. And this idea that are these layers in time, that they come and they go, and what it's left, it's what have remained with certain idea of quality. I think it's what it's interesting. Then we have our time, and our time is just a new layer. It's not to remake everything. It's not important what we do. We just add, or we just adapt, or we just change slightly. But it's a discontinuity, and what is important, we can assume that it's left in the city for the people to live. And when you going around a city like this, you understand that it's made of
layers.
So many layers, and they live so well together. So that's, I mean, if I have to choose, it's where we have the best coffee. The rest doesn't care. No, but
Hey, that feels like a good place to end. Lyndon, you want to add something, and then I'll do a quick fire question before we wrap up. Nothing to add on the great battle.
No, I agree with the coffee.
I thought.
I agree with the coffee.
I thought. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to define good design in 10 seconds or less. No, I'm only joking. But you have to do it quickly because our audience is keen to go. Manuel, you go first. Good design is good coffee.
quality.
Oh, quality. Oh boy. Who wants to go next?
Humility.
Humility.
Yes.
Rossana, I'm waiting for something deep and thoughtful.
More than one word. I think
You can use
good
several.
design is when we are responding to the problems of the world. And so I don't think it's going to be about labeling, styles, aesthetics anymore. It's going to be about sustainability. And that's why quality is important. And
Yes.
that's why
Solid
we
wood.
designed for De La Spada, because
There you go.
it's
Good answer.
quality.
Ooh.
It's going to look like I've just handed you a $50 bill.
You buy it. You need to have your furniture for life and for generations. It's not about buying
Amen
something
to
and
that.
throw it away
Yeah.
next week.
Amen to
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say-
Because we're in this world that, needs to respond to climate challenges.
I'm saying good design is something that will last, and we'll know
Yeah.
when we get there. When we get there,
That's
we'll
true.
know what has lasted, and then we'll say it's good design. Until then, it's an opinion. All right, on this note, I want to thank you all for your patience. I want to thank my guests who were kind enough to come. I want to thank Art Valsu for creating this wonderful venue. Please, a round of applause for the injured lady.